Okay, picking up with the accessory organs. All right, in the middle at the top you see the epididymis sitting on the testis. Sperm become mature. They become motile. They move from the epididymis via ejaculation. Uh, Actually, via emission. We'll talk about the difference between emission and ejaculation in a bit. There is smooth muscle in the wall, and it helps to propel the sperm along. They're not moving on their own at that point in time. All right, now at the base of the epididymis, right there, okay, um, this is where the vas deferens starts. So the sperm are going to go up that way, all right? Now to continue on over here, you see this area that you can see in the picture to the left. Okay, so they're going to move this way. They go up alongside the penis. Look at the view down here. You see the penis, and here is the epididymis right there. And there's a vas deferens, and it goes through the body wall right there, and that's where we're going through the body wall right there. It goes alongside the bladder. It comes out, oh, not out, it comes to the back of the bladder where it will merge with the duct from the seminal vesicle. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's where the duct of the seminal vesicle and the vas deferens comes together, and that's where the vas deferens ends, right there. Now, notice that there is another gland sitting right there. It's the prostate gland. And now you notice that there is a duct running through the prostate. Let me erase it so you can see it. It's not the vas deferens, it's called the ejaculatory duct. It runs through the prostate. And notice that let me change colors, that the ejaculatory duct dead ends in the urethra. The urethra is coming from the bladder right there, comes in here, the two merge together, and it's all urethra, 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 all the way out. Okay, good view of the vas deferens right there. This wall is smooth muscle, peristaltic action, moving sperm. To go back to this view over here, you can see on your left testis, epididymis, vas deferens, kind of a white-ish type of tubing. Notice that there's blood vessels right here, and there's nerves, and there's lymphatic vessels, and blah, 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 blah. And there is a muscle. In fact, there's a muscle layer in the wall of the scrotum called the dartos muscle that pulls the testes up towards the body for warmth. And there is a muscle, a lengthwise muscle right here. You can see it in pink. It's called the cremaster muscle. And it also helps to pull the testes up for heat. So there's more than just a vas deferens going up from the testes into the body. It's a whole thing there with muscle and everything else. That whole thing is called the spermatic cord. You can see that spermatic cord over here. Again, if you could cut it in cross-section, look at it, you'd see vas deferens, blood vessels, lymphatic, blah, 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 blah. You can see an inguinal hernia at the bottom. That's a weakened area of the wall, which is, you can see right there, the inguinal canal, there's that hole. It's not a straight through hole, it's kind of a oblique hole at an angle. And the problem is that since that's a weak area of the wall, there's got to be a hole there for the testes to come through, but it makes that wall area weaker. Intestines can get caught in there, and you've got a hernia. Alright, so here's a look at the different areas of the urethra. Prostatic urethra there. membranous urethra at the bottom of the pelvic cavity, penile urethra right there. Good view of the back of the bladder, big boy bladder. Now remember, you're looking at a dorsal view. Good view of the three glands we're going to talk about in a minute. By the way, vas deferens right there. Remember, it's coming in along the side of the bladder. These are the ureters you see right here from the kidneys. Here, the sperm are coming down this way. They get down here. They merge with the seminal vesicle duct. It becomes the ejaculatory duct as it enters the prostate gland. There's an ejaculatory duct over here. Now you see the dead end into the urethra right there. That's the prostate. There's only one. And kind of almost off the screen is the third little gland. It's sitting in the bottom of the pelvic wall. That's the pelvic wall at the bottom, pelvic floor, I guess we'll call it. You can see those tiny little pea-sized glands right there. It's called the Cowper's gland or the bulbourethral gland. It makes a lubricant for intercourse. And here are the three glands. Seminal vesicles, I've got them set off in bold because they make up 60% of the semen. Seminal semen. Has nutrients in it. High fructose. Very high fructose. Also prostaglandins, which help in contraction of the female vagina, which is kind of interesting. Helps to propel the sperm upward to get to an egg. Then the prostate, which makes up about 20% of semen. It has a factor involved in clotting. It has an antibiotic to keep bacteria from attacking the sperm. Okay, I've already mentioned the Cowper's gland, so there's not much to talk about on that. You see the glands on the picture over there very nicely. There's some question about the alkalinity of the glands. The seminal vesicles contribute alkalinity to buffer the acidity of the female vagina so the sperm don't all die. And also, semen will tend to become more acidic because the sperm are using fructose sugar for aerobic respiration. Because remember, they live for 3 days. They have to do aerobic respiration. And there are a lot of acids made in the Krebs cycle and pyruvic acid and glycolysis, and so you got to have some sort of buffer. Anyway, the prostate, I've got alkaline over here also, but a lot of that alkalinity, probably much of it, comes from seminal vesicles. Here's a look at semen, profile of it. Fructose, slightly alkaline. 2 to 6 mils ejaculate. By the way, 3 mils, I believe, is a teaspoon, just to give you an idea. 100 million sperm per mil. Talk about overkill. Some antimicrobial proteins to keep bacteria down. You're talking about it in an ejaculate at probably at least 300 million sperm total. 100 million sperm per mil. If you get down to about 20 million and below, you're considered infertile because 99.999% of the sperm are going to die before they ever get to an egg. The vagina is very acidic, about a pH of 4.5. That's not good for sperm. And some of the sperm get lost along the way. They end up going the wrong fallopian tube. You know, males, they always get lost. Anyway, so you need at least 1,000 sperm to get to the egg, because even though it's one sperm fertilizes one egg, they need pals. So you've got to have lots of sperm around for fertilization. And if you got a 99.999% kill, that means you got to start with a gazillion of them to begin with. I've already mentioned they live for 3 days. That's it. Okay, penis. We're going to get into ejaculation and all that stuff later, so let me just go through the structure. Here is a cross-section of the penis. Kind of looks like a face. Remember that. There are three erectile columns of the penis. Okay, so here's a lengthwise picture. Here is one column. You see it right here in cross-section. Here is another column. You see it in cross-section. Those two are called the corpora cavernosa. One is called a corpus cavernosum, which basically means a big body. Corpus means body. Cavernosum, like cavernous. You see the urethra going right down the middle and out the end of the penis. But at the bottom here, it's kind of off the screen, there's some more erectile tissue. It's found only down here in the glans. It's called the glans penis down here at the end. Well, let me take that back. It's not, let me erase this so you can see it. It's not found just at, most of it's found in the glans down here. But there's a sliver of it, there's a little bit of it going around, let me outline it here, around the urethra. As you can see, most of it is down here at the tip. Okay, so here it is right here. It's called the corpus spongiosum. It surrounds the urethra. But it's this corpus cavernosum erectile tissue, the two of them together, that really are involved in erection. There are arteries that dilate inside here, and they increase blood flow. It looks like a monkey. Anyway, and you can see that over here on the right. So you can see what's going to happen. These guys are going to engorge with blood and makes the whole penis larger in diameter, but also lengthwise. Again, we'll go into erection later. Okay, hormones. It's going to be the same for female. Hypothalamus, gonadotropin-releasing hormone, talks to the pituitary. Pituitary makes two gonadotropins, FSH and LH. Stands for follicle-stimulating hormone. It's named for the female function, but it works in the male, and it turns on spermatogenesis. That is its job. So here is, on the picture on the right, FSH, right there from the pituitary. This is supposed to be seminiferous tubules, right there. LH targets the testes also, but LH, luteinizing hormone, turns on the cells of Leydig, and they make testosterone. LH is indirectly responsible for testosterone. FSH is directly responsible for sperm production. So, from the testes, under the control of LH, we have testosterone production. The picture showing chemistry here, the main thing I wanted to show you is that testosterone is a steroid based on cholesterol. Here is testosterone, not that you need to know its structure. You can see the steroid backbone. But I did want you to notice that estrogen, or estradiol, and all the estrogens, because there are a few of them, are close cousins of testosterone. They're just variations. And here's progesterone right there. They're all close relatives. And from the adrenal cortex, androgens, the masculinizing hormones, they are basically variations of testosterone also, like dihydroxytestosterone is one of them, but they're different ones, androstenedione, and these are other precursors of testosterone. And again, they're made in the fetus, as well as adult. Okay, so testosterone, what does it do? It helps to cap off spermatogenesis. It doesn't tell sperm to be made. It doesn't cause the meiotic division. It is the icing on the cake, meaning it's involved in maturation of the sperm at the end. Also involved in growth and function of reproductive organs. They all get bigger, hair, all that stuff. Those are part of secondary sex traits. Deeper voice, decrease in fat content in the body, leaner muscle mass, blah, 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 blah. Also, increase in BMR. So a male 16-year-old boy eats a heck of a lot more calories than a female 16-year-old girl. By the way, in case you're wondering what's a primary sex characteristic, making sperm. Let me point on this picture. I've already mentioned it. Let me point it out again. Inhibin. Remember, comes from the nerve cells. It's involved in keeping the sperm from just increasing and increasing. I mean, you don't want spermatogenesis to just keep going up, 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 up. It's a waste of resources, frankly. Stop and take a look at this picture if you need to. All right. I'm going to talk about this in class, so let me skip over that. And let's go over to the female. This is going to go faster because we've already covered meiosis. Primary organ, ovaries. On the picture, you see two pictures here. Here's the pelvic cavity. Here's the bottom of the pelvic cavity right there. There's the bladder sitting at the bottom right there. Here is the uterus. We'll talk about that later. There are the ovaries right there, kind of being held upward by the fallopian tubes, with the fallopian tubes. And here's the view, kind of from the front. There's your ovary, fallopian tube is right there. Vagina down below. Here's the vagina leading down from the uterus. This is the uterus right there. There's the vagina right there. Anything else? This is the urethral opening there. There's the rectal opening, anus right there. There are not three in the male because the urethra is conduit for both semen and urine. Again, primary organ, ovaries, everything else accessory. Okay. Looking at the picture, you're looking down into the pelvic cavity. It's as if you were 3 feet tall, standing in front of a woman, maybe 3.5 feet tall, and you were looking into her pelvic cavity. So you're kind of looking, you're not looking down as if you were looking from the top looking into your own pelvic cavity. You're looking at an angle from the front looking inward. So on this picture, here's the front of the body right there. Wait a minute. Front of the body right there. There's the bladder. Here's the uterus. It's sitting kind of frontwards over the bladder. Part of it is kind of leaning over it. Lots of ligaments. You see them in white. Lots. Everything is kind of like floating around in the female reproductive tract. In the male, everything is, well, there aren't that many things. Nothing is kind of going, vibrating or moving around. In the female, everything is like a young tree that has to be tied down. Otherwise, things move around. Okay, so anyway, on the ligaments, remember ovary, right there, right there. Let's go the obvious first. Ovarian ligament holds it to the top of the uterus. By the way, remember you're looking down. This is the top of the uterus right here. This is the superior uterus. This is at the bottom. You see, let me erase that. You see another membrane. It's called the broad ligament right here. It's referenced. It is this membrane around the uterus. uterus is kind of sitting in a sheet of ligament. It's called a broad ligament. There's one on each side. It's actually attached to the base of the floor of the pelvic cavity. Holding the ovary upward, you see a ligament right here in white, and you see another one over here. It's a suspensory ligament. Go back in that same view before. Alright, so now you can really see that broad ligament. Here's the broad ligament right there. And again, it attaches all around the ovary so it doesn't move around. You can't see the suspensory ligament here, but it would be holding the ovary up to the body wall. The body wall would be over here. Ovarian ligament right there. There's a tunica albuginea around the ovary, just like in the male. Alright, so let me get you through meiosis. Okay, you're looking at an ovary. Here's our ovary model from lab. And around the outside, not quite out, but right over here, just like in the testis, germinal epithelium. This right out here, here's the kind of outside area of the ovary. With this germinal epithelium is going to undergo meiosis. It's part of oogenesis. We start out with diploid, 46 chromosome cells called oogonia, comparable to spermatogonia. They are out here in the germinal epithelium. Out here, blue dots. Alright, now, here's a big diff between males and females. The fetus, little girl, is born having her oogonia already undergone mitosis to become primary oocytes. Remember, that doesn't happen until puberty in a male. Girls are so ahead of males. So the female already has 500,000 immature follicles with almost primary oocytes. They're actually stuck. They're not quite. Whoops, low battery. They're not quite primary oocytes, but almost. And they are there at birth. Okay. The dotted line you see over here. Here we have birth, and now we're going to jump to puberty. So you see puberty on the right. We've now gone, everything is dormant for 12, 13 years, and some of the follicles now begin to mature. You see the follicles, they're getting bigger. Look at these guys right in here. They're obviously larger. Then they get even bigger. Then they get even bigger. Then they get even bigger. And as the follicles are getting bigger, the eggs are undergoing oogenesis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, meiosis 1, meiosis, and that's all going on, and the whole follicle gets bigger. That occurs monthly from when you undergo puberty. Eventually, they become to the point of maturity, the follicles. They have a secondary oocyte inside of them. They are called Graafian follicles. You'll see more about these later. On our model right down here, let me get rid of all the marking. Look at the egg right there. This is ovulation. Unfortunately, this model doesn't have a Graafian follicle on it. If the egg were still inside right there, it would be a Graafian follicle. Again, I'll show you a picture of it later. And there's fluid inside here. Estrogen and estrogen is the main one. After ovulation, when the egg is gone, there's egg leaving, ovulation, this follicle collapses and it becomes this guy right here. It's called the corpus luteum, yellow body, and it's making estrogen and progesterone. Before that, while it's involved in just egg maturation, before ovulation, it's only making estrogen. Okay, so here's oogenesis. Good view of a Graafian follicle. Okay, so you see the ovary right here, different stages. Look over here at the picture. We start out, oogonium undergoes mitosis. Remember, this is before birth. Here are our primary oocytes. That's what our little girls are born with, all the primary oocytes already made. So the mitosis phase has happened before birth. Okay, now we fast forward 13 years to puberty, 12 years, whatever you like. Okay, so about 12 of these guys will start the process will pick up with oogenesis. Remember, they're now going to start meiosis 1. You see meiosis 1 right here at that arrow right there. This is happening monthly from puberty to menopause. I said about a dozen. About 11 of them are going to die. There's only going to be one that ever makes it. So, here is our primary oocyte undergoing meiosis 1. There's our primary oocyte. Again, prophase, anaphase, all that stuff's been left off here. At the end of meiosis 1, here's the end of meiosis 1 right here, we have 2 daughter cells. Big girl, nothing cell, little cell. Little cell is called a polar body. Notice it's just a nucleus. It's lost its cytoplasm. All of the cytoplasm ends up with the big girl. The big girl is called a secondary oocyte. She's haploid, 23 chromosomes, so is the polar body for that matter. But the secondary oocyte gets all of the cytoplasm. The polar body will die, or the polar body may undergo meiosis 2, but it's inconsequential, can't be fertilized. The reason why the secondary oocyte has to get all that cytoplasm is that it's going to take a week, 10 days, if fertilization occurs, that is, to get to a uterus. It's taken its own food. The food is in the cytoplasm. It's got to have a lot of cytoplasm to carry nutrients. Now, we've just gone through and undergone meiosis 1. We haven't done meiosis 2 yet. This girl, secondary oocyte, goes out of the ovary, ovulation, secondary oocyte, and it now is in a fallopian tube, and it starts meiosis 2. But in about metaphase, it stops, and it doesn't do anything. And the only thing that's going to cause it to finish meiosis 2 is a sperm. There has to be a sperm around for the egg to want to complete meiosis 2. Otherwise, it will die unfertilized in the middle of meiosis 2. It will have never made a mature egg, a mature ovum. Let's assume sperm's around. So it completes meiosis 2. Here are the 2 daughter cells again, right? 1 cell becomes 2 cells. There's another polar body. We don't care. Here is the mature ovum. It actually becomes a ootid, and then very quickly becomes a mature ovum. And by this time, the sperm head is already starting to penetrate the egg. It's got all the cytoplasm of the polar body. Graafian follicle, right there. There is your secondary oocyte. That's what's going to go out in ovulation. Notice all these other follicles? The eggs have died inside. Never made it. Okay. Comparison of the 2. I'm not going to stay here. You can stay here if you like. Okay. Just to show you the ovarian cycle, talked about this already. Let me do it again. Start with the primary follicle up here at the top. Follicle is just a bag that the egg is in. The egg is like this tan brown thing. Remember that this arrow, green arrow, first arrow, indicating mitosis, the production of primary oocytes during fetal development. Then, remember we have a dormant time period right here until puberty. And here is meiosis 1. This is meiosis 1 right there, the arrow, all the steps of meiosis 1. Here's the follicle wall right here. And there's the egg, little brown tan guy, girl. And there's your Graafian follicle. And again, you can see ovulation there. And here at about 10 o'clock is the collapse of the follicle wall, making the corpus luteum, which is making estrogen, progesterone. The views here. Here's our immature egg in a follicle. Here's a Graafian follicle. Remember, estrogen being made in here. Then this guy right here, second oocyte, goes out in ovulation. That's what you're looking at right there. There's a secondary oocyte. These little guys over here, those cells right around here, these are the cells from the follicle wall that got stuck on it. Notice also there's a membrane, thick membrane right there. Keeps the sperm from getting in. Fallopian tubes, nothing to say. Smooth muscle. Helps to move the egg along. Eggs don't have any motility. They're moving with the wind. Well, fluid inside the tubes. Fimbriae at the end of the fallopian tubes are these engorged finger-like things. They're always waving around. Helps to kind of move the egg a little bit. Pick it up, in the fallopian tube. Salpingitis, pelvic inflammatory disease, if there's an infection. By the way, cilia line the fallopian tubes. You can see cilia on the histology slides here. Okay, uterus. Back to the ligaments. Again, that view right there, there's the uterus. Again, the top of it, it's leaning over the bladder. So I know that looks weird, but that's the top of the arrow. Okay, so ligaments. Okay, ligaments holding the uterus to the back body wall. There's a sacrum right here, kind of right there. These are called the uterosacral ligaments. Then you've got, because you want the tilt of the uterus towards the front of the body, over the bladder, it's got to be held in the front. Look at these ligaments right here. They're called the round ligaments. They hold it to the front pelvic girdle. Then, I've already mentioned the broad ligament. Again, good look at the broad ligament right there. It's holding, it's actually down on the bottom of the pelvic girdle. It's actually down here. There's the uterus right there. The broad ligament is just holding it down. Here's a cut section of the uterus. Good view of smooth muscle. Thickest part of the wall, smooth muscle. Parts of it, fundus, rounded area, think stomach, body, cervix, oops, I don't know why I put V. Cervix is this area down here. By the way, opening right there, it's called the cervical os. That's where that little kid comes out. Peritonitis, by the way, infection, STD, syphilis, gonorrhea, any number of things. Goes up the vagina, can go up the uterus, can go up the fallopian tube. Bacteria get out in here. Now you've got peritonitis, life-threatening. Wall layers. Okay, I have lost my connection, so I can't draw anything. So here is the uterine wall. There are 3 layers here. Unfortunately, I can't annotate anymore. I lost connection. But that inner white layer that you see, endometrium, the thick wall layer, smooth muscle, myometrium, myo like myocardium, pericardium, endocardium, blah, blah, blah. Outer layer on the outside of the uterus also forms all the ligaments continuous with it. the perimetrium. It's that myometrium that's involved in labor. Okay, I'm going to stop here. That'll leave us with one last